Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Beauty, Strength, and Dominance, the official LFC Lingerie Fighting Championships podcast. My name is Mike Larkin, and joining me today is LFC prospect and pro wrestler. She is a box office attraction, Ms. Dabria Xavia. Dabria, it's a pleasure and privilege. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I cannot complain. First and foremost, you're doing a lot of great things in the professional wrestling world and being a part of LFC Madness. So you have been doing very much a lot of great things. It's a pleasure to have you. I do enjoy your work.
Oh, thank you so much.
Hi, you're very welcome. And I look at it from a stance too, with professional wrestling nowadays, with so many independent wrestling promotions on the come up and so many independent professional wrestling promotions out there. Excuse me. You've been doing a lot of great work as far as on the Northeast side of things and with the CZW Dojo Wars. I got to say, it's great to see people like yourself continue to flourish and really come up in the world of professional wrestling.
I know it's I grew up watching this and it's a dream to keep doing this. Even like during the pandemic when it's harder to push through when you feel like less motivated during this time, especially when you're not around your wrestling school you're originally from. But I found a good school in New York, Brooklyn, and that's where I'm in training lately.
Look at it from a stance too as well, whether it be in Brooklyn or what have you. I mean, everybody talks about Johnny Rods' school, which is a legendary school that featured people like Matt Stryker and Hugh Morris and so many amazing people. When you're training in upstate New York or Brooklyn, New York, or Long Island, New York really, like we mentioned, the Northeast, is such a hotbed for independent wrestling and schools as well.
Yeah, it definitely is like the Northeast in general is so big. There's a lot of schools, and I feel like we're lucky in a way that we have so many companies that's coming up, especially like there's Hog right now, and then there's IWW, then there's Philadelphia, South Jersey, all these places. It's like there's so many. Like even in Ohio, well, that's not Northeast, but Maine, there's a lot in Maine right now. So
Well, of course. And first and foremost, you mentioned a great promotion like Hog, House of Glory. I mean, Amazing Red. We've seen LAX come there from Santana and Ortiz, and we have Will Ospreay going there now and Malachi Black. It's really, again, once more, a hotbed for professional wrestling. And House of Glory taking over NYWC on Long Island. Now, talk about the school that you're going to in Brooklyn, New York. What's the name of the school and where can people check it out?
technique to training is during it's currently trained by MV Young and Logan Black. So it's a lot of people like learning there. Like I learned under them. Leroy is like it's such a great place just to train from. Like and just even for me, I'm just like going back to the basics and just like refresh my memory, especially during last year when I didn't train much for like almost a couple months because of the pandemic.
I look at it from a stance too as well, like with everything that's gone on, and we've returned to some sense of normalcy in 2021. Now we got the Omicron to worry about as we head into 2022. But at the same time, I mean, with the quarantine and having the COVID situation, I mean, it gave us a lot of creative juices and creativity at home for home workouts and a lot of stuff. So we have to expand our minds and get our creative juices flowing from the workout side of things and really just, moving our bodies around.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like this like lockdown and being in quarantine is like even though this is such a horrible thing going on right now, it's been good for someone like me who's like so creative and just love to be inside and just storm up ideas in my head and just love just coming up with all these things like during this time that I could be working on a character, working on a story for myself, all these things during this time.
Now we got to talk about this character. I'm glad that you brought that word up because I love the name, the box office attraction. It's very empowering. It's very slick. It's very sly. Dare I say, it's very swag. So I got to say, I
Yeah.
love the character name and I love the overall art that goes into it with the craft of the character. Talk about how that came into fruition, man, because it's very cool and it's very unintended attracting.
Oh, it's just a funny story because during my dojo wars days, I didn't have a character. I was just me. And even though it kind of worked for me because I'm just like, oh, I'm just so now. I'm just Dabria. I'm just a girl who loves to wrestle. And people enjoy that. And I was like, yeah, but who am I? Like I don't want to be just a girl who just happened to wrestle. No one's going to make money off of that. So I want to have a character. I want to go into like someone who's different than me. So to get a different idea, to get into a different character, to be different from who I am usually. And we were doing a promo class once and one day, and I was like, you know what? I want to cut this promo and let's just see how this work out. And that's when it came to be. And I was like, I want to work on it more and more. And that's how I came up with the box office attraction. I started saying like I'm box office money. I was just going through so much stuff that I could have been doing.
Hey, if Floyd Mayweather can talk about I get money when he was going against the Big Show at WrestleMania 24 and you can make it rain, I mean, who doesn't? I mean, money makes the world go round, as the song goes. Money, that's what I want. That's what I want. It's very fitting, and it's also like we mentioned the swag side of things and the legendary $1 million man Ted DiBiase buying him off. Here's the pool, you know. It's very old school, but it's also very imperative to today's society and just in general with how business is.
Yeah, I got a lot of ideas, even like drawing some from Sasha Banks. He's the boss. The Miz, I love his work as like he's an A-lister, and that's how I draw some from him too, because I was like, I'm a star too in some kind of way. And that's when I started drawing elements of them. Triple H, he's a star just by himself, and how how he presents himself. That's when you know you're a star. When you come out and he's like, oh my God, that's Triple H. That's who I want to be, you know? Someone who's like, oh my God, that's Dabria Xavia. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you also pull it off very well. Like I mentioned, many great influences. I mean, if you look at Triple H when he first started with the Hunter Hearst Helmsley character, it's very aristocratic, it's very blue blood, it's very snobbish. But at the end of the day, it's stuff like that that works. I mean, you could turn your nose up to people. That's great heel right there. You could go around smiling. That's great baby face right there. So there's so many different layers and aspects that you can add. And like I said, you added it very well with the box office attraction, and it shows.
Yeah, I'm just so excited to start doing more of this. Like sometime next year, hopefully I'll just get to develop it more and interact with different people with this character and just see how it goes.
Oh, absolutely. And now we mentioned CZW Dojo Wars, and we're going to talk about CZW here because to coincide with LFC, Taylor Holly Combs, Felicia Dior were also part of LFC Madness, people who you know very well. It's one of those things when it comes to CZW, you think of Combat Zone Wrestling, you think of guys like the late, great Brody Lee, John Moxley, you look at people like Lufisto, people like yourself, and people like MJF and Bear Bronson who are on AEW, Penelope Ford, Mia Yim. CZW is such an all-star for so many professional wrestlers alike. So how did CZW come into fruition with you with the Dojo Wars? Because I got to say, it's a work of history right here.
It is. It's such a long story. I I'm just a big wrestling fan, especially when I was in high school, and I was doing a video project, and I was like, I don't know what to do on, and my teacher, he was like, well, you like wrestling, so why don't you go to wrestling school and just interview them? And I was like, holy crap, okay, I'll do it. And I couldn't find anywhere except for CCW in South Jersey. So I traveled all the way from there, from small town in Pennsylvania, and went there. I interviewed DJ Drew Gulak, and they were just so amazing. And that's when I was like, I want to train there. And then my mom was like, you can't. And I was like, oh. And then I like waited till I graduated from community college and went over to Philadelphia for a temple. And then I was like, no, now I'm going to train. And that's how I started training there.
Well, first and foremost, I got to say your mom is very smart because a college
Yeah.
college degree to fall back on just in case it doesn't work. So yeah, you have your college degree. But also at the same time, it's also very cool. You mentioned minds like Drew Gulak and so many amazing talents like that. What's cool about it is too in CZW, everybody compared it to like the original ECW. Yeah, we have your violent death matches, but there's some great technical wrestling as well.
I know.
That's the beauty about wrestling. It's the variety, right?
Yes, and just so much, like just learning under like so many people during that school, and it's like just so many to pick from, and I was like, what can I do? Because obviously looking at me, I can't like suplex someone, I can't just pick up someone in a body slam. What can I do? And there's so much like luchador, and I would get into that later. But I started doing all these other things that I learned from Preacher, Jimmy Wave, all these people, and I'm so privileged to learn under all of these amazing wrestlers that most people don't get to learn under.
We'll talk about it now because you actually mentioned something that's absolutely awesome. The world of lucha wrestling, like you mentioned, we mentioned Rey Mysterio and so many great talents like that. Lucha wrestling is so fluid, it's so aerial dynamic, it's the acrobatic
So,
style. But that's the great style to have because from Mexico to the States, it's really transcended over years and years and years. It's a part of history. So, I mean, what a great style to learn, the lucha style, right?
yes, when I moved back to New York, I was trying to find a school. I'm like, well, I don't know where to go, and I found BWF, West Bronx Wrestling Federation, and that's when I learned under a luchador, and I started learning all these things I do now: the wheelbarrow, arm drag, the Horgananas, all these things, and they had me do like all these moves like 50 times, like over and over and over, so I could get this right. And I was like, oh my god, I'm so tired, but I need to do this right. And it's like, yeah, that's when a battle royal where I did my Horganana. That was like the first time I did it in front of a crowd, and that's where I got this like huge spot. Well, for me, it's a huge spot when I get to this forum and chop all these people, all these guys, and then I get to do a Horganana. I was so excited. And then when I get eliminated, like all these people start booing. And I'm like, oh my God, people actually care about me. And that was the first time that I got reacting like that. And that's how I got my first match at CCW Dojo. And the rest was history.
Well, first and foremost, you're like a regular Lita before she was in WWE training in Mexico, just Eric and Ronald's all over the place. Well, no, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But that's really cool too, as well, because wrestling's about being emotionally invested, telling a good story. And if you could get the people, to be like that, so amped, and then when you get eliminated, it's like, oh, that is the main storytelling part of wrestling right there. And I think you did your job.
And that it was just so exciting. Just like, because that was the first time I ever did this. No one seen me before, and how it was presented. Even if you go back to the video or the match, you could hear like Cherry Bomb by John Jett in the background because that was my entrance music, and it was playing through the whole time that I was fighting. So it sounds so good. It made me look so big as a person. So that was like one of those moments that I cherish to myself.
Well, first and foremost, you got great music taste with that Joan Jett song. But no, also at the same time, it's moments like that. And I've seen your work. I've seen your YouTube channel with guys like, excuse me, Sugar the Great White Shark, and so many matches like that in your highlight reel. And really going back on the CZW Dojo Wars because it has such young up and comers like yourself and many veterans. So it's a nice mix, and it's something that a lot of people sleep on because a lot of people don't realize just like the CZW product, like we mentioned, but the Dojo Wars has much talent for the future, right?
Yeah, and I learned so much during these times, and it's like even like when I wanted to do something, I wanted to try something out, and I was like, hey, I want to do a 6-man tag somewhere in Maine. Can I do one today? And he was like, yeah, definitely. And this is how I got into a 6-man tag. And a unfortunate thing happened with my leg, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get through it. Not a big deal. I went through it, and a lot of people was like, "I'm so proud of you for getting through that moment." Well, freaking out. Most people wouldn't have done that, and I'm like, "Well, you gotta do what you gotta do. It's a match, and I can't just pause just because my hair fell out." And a lot of people just like love that, and they was like, "Oh, when are you going to do that again?" I'm like, "Well, that was an accident." But yeah, just like trying things out like that, like that's when people were like, oh my God. And I did it a second time, and that's when people even loved it more. And that's how I started developing a character kind of. But it's like it was just me being me and just like you see that I'm a small girl. So I'm just going like especially with someone like Nick Carter, like there was another battle royal I did, and I was like trying to eliminate him, and he is so huge and I'm so small, and it was just a funny moment when everyone was just laughing their butt off because I was trying to eliminate this huge dude. So even something like that makes me feel like I'm part of this community when I can make like someone laugh, like even if like just making people laugh, making them enjoy their time there.
Of course. I mean, look at it in WWE history, Royal Rumble 2002, Hurricane trying to choke slam Triple H and Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's funny moments like that that really stick out. And I mean, the comedy side of things, and we mentioned evoking emotions, but the intergender side of things, I know you've done some intergender wrestling as well. It's amazing to see the evolution of that because, I mean, you look in the 80s with Andy Kaufman, Jerry Lawler, Andy Kaufman's the intergender champion of the world. And we move on to later years with Lucha Underground and so many talents. Like you don't people don't realize how much the focal point of intergender wrestling is.
I know, and a lot of people think like bad things about it, and I don't understand that because it's like it's just a sport to me. It's just like who else are you going to wrestle with? Like, of course, there's women, but there's also men. Like, why should it be separated? You know? And that's how I learned under, and it's like I don't know how to even like. I do not know why people will be against it. It just makes me feel even more empowered when I'm like, yes, I wrestle men. Who cares? And yeah, especially when people like message me like, "Oh my God, you beat this dude up." I'm like, "Yeah, of course I did. I'm a go. Who cares?" you know?
Oh, of course. I mean, Sizzling Stan Styles is doing his thing with his intergender bonanza, and it's stuff that you need to see like that. I mean, I look at it from a stance too as well. Like you guys and girls train together, so you're going to be doing moves and you're going to be training with each other. Doing practice matches and stuff overall in wrestling training. So it's like you're taking that from training, putting into an event. So it's like it's a big deal, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's how I do most of the things I do now. Like I train. I do it with like 1,000 people, and it's it's something. It's different. It's pro wrestling. Pro wrestling is supposed to be different, you know?
Agreed wholeheartedly. There's so many different art forms and different crafts. So I mean, you have to dip your toe in everything because again, the variety aspect, but it adds more to one's repertoire. So it helps in the long run.
Yes, definitely.
And I got to say to you, my friend, I look at it from a stance too as well with professional wrestling as a whole. You're talking about you've been watching this since high school. You've been watching this since you were growing up. I got to ask you about what really motivated you and wanted you to really get into wrestling and what were some of your favorite moments? Because I mean, you look at nowadays, a lot of people really watch reality shows. There's many outlets for people to watch professional wrestling to get to know their fans. So what was the moment or the overall match that really got you into professional wrestling and something that you wanted to do?
Um, honestly, just like I do not remember the first match, but I see like Triple H is like my everything to me. He's like, oh my God. I saw him and I was like, wait, I want to be a star like that. How he presents himself is like superstar. And after that, just like I started watching more and more. Then there's guys like CM Punk, Shawn Michaels, and then there was Mickey James and Melina during those times. I was like, oh my God, I want to be one of those people. And AJ Lee was a huge person that I wanted to be like because she represents someone like me. Like I'm small, but I'm not like the super glowy girl like that they usually have in wrestling. And yeah, and those kind of people just like had me start wanting to do it. Women like Kimberly, like even going to CCW shows like during that time, like 2014, I believe, when I started going to shows, seeing like Shane Strickland, Kimberly, Nevaeh, like all these women and men. It's that's how I got into like I want to go to CCW specifically.
First and foremost, once more, you have good taste with one Shane Strickland, Isaiah Swerve Scott doing his thing in WWE. Lucha Underground is kill shot. And I mean, Kimberly, my goodness gracious, what a character transformation. She goes from this woman being alongside Deonna Purrazzo. Now her and C Young are these undead brides. So, I mean, she's another one that also did her thing.
Yeah, she's such an inspiration. I loved when she was with Drew Gulak and the faction that they had. It was really good, and I just loved kind of like a first lady kind of character that she had, and hopefully I get to do something like that in the future.
And I'm sure you will. And I also look at it from a stance too as well. You mentioned another great name in AJ Lee, which I will say, not the typical diva like you mentioned, the typical women's wrestler. I mean, here she is. She's like, yeah, I play video games. I'm wearing Chuck Taylors. Boom, this is who I am, which is so cool. But at the same time, like, how awesome is it now to see AJ Lee being a part of Wow Women of Wrestling and really ushering the new
Mhm.
generation, being an executive producer and commentary?
Yeah, definitely. It's like I feel like I've been waiting for the day. Like, oh my God, AJ's family getting back into wrestling. It's a time to be a wrestling fan, especially CM Punk is back, AJ's back, kind of, and just all your favorites from like 2012 is coming back, and it just makes me feel excited again. I feel like I lost my passion a little bit in the last year, but I feel more passion now just watching things like this and my old matches, trying to like put together like what made me love it in the first place.
Well, I will say this as well, because you also did mention, excuse me, you mentioned amazing people like Mickey James and Molina also around that time. Mickey James doing the all pay-per-view for NWA Empower. Like, that's what you need to see. WWE did it with Evolution, but Mickey James being once more at the forefront and really showcased a lot of the talents we've seen on the indies and in general. So that was one of the big successes of the year.
Yes, I hope to work with her one day. It's like one of these goals that I hopefully get to do in the next few years. Hopefully. Hmm.
Well, I look at it also from a stance too as well, and you so eloquently put it, like, the times with the pandemic, it can be very stressful for people, and people lose their passion because they're jonesing, they want to get out there. But I think at the end of the day, we also do have to stick through it. And it can wander, and it could, like, it affect your mental health, but also at the same time, there's going to be obstacles, there's going to be struggles in life, but it's how you get through said obstacles. So I mean, I got to say, you've been going through and you've been striving, so I look forward to seeing you strive in the future.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a year. Um, I feel like I always feel like I need to pick like one career over the other. It's either me being a wrestler or me being a filmmaker. And it's like, why do it have to be either or when you could just be both? You're just creating art in two different ways. And that's how I see myself as an artist, like a creator.
Well, you have to, and people always tell you about sticking to one thing, but I'm like, there's jack of all trades, and I'll say this: you're like a Jill of all trades. You can get your studies and get everything of different aspects and different endeavors, and it helps. You know what I'm saying? It's very multifaceted.
Definitely, and it helps the wrestling like just having more skills than just wrestling. Just like I've been trying to go under in refereeing, being a manager, just trying to figure out ways like let me see what I can do if I can't wrestle anymore.
Hey, I mean, you could be the next sensational Sherry if you want to. Just scream, you know what I'm saying? Trip everybody, just do the damn thing, right? The managerial role is
Right.
very important.
Yes, I was studying her work with Shawn Michaels when I was like, maybe I want to be a manager. She's one of the best, definitely. And I need to watch her work with Macho Man too.
One of the best, man. I mean, she was someone, like I mentioned, when she's in WCW with Harlem Heat, Shawn Michaels, like you said so eloquently, Macho Man Randy Savage. She's just one that could get the people to hate her, and she did it so well.
So well, and she looked so beautiful during that. And I really, really loved her unique look. And even like going to a Luna and how she looked was so different. And she was a manager as well to Goldust during that time, 1997, I believe,
Yep.
98, somewhere around that. And I really loved that moment because it was so different. And even those two characters together, they're so like out there and they still made it work that I'm like, I want to see them next week and the next week after that.
Very imposing figures, Miss Luna Vachon, God rest her soul. And of course, China, when she's Ragdoll and Terry Runnels and she's a part of DX, she's with Triple H. Like, very imposing figure. People talk about, her accolades and her endeavors afterwards, but I'm like, you know what I'm saying? People can say what they want, but there's no denying that China was an integral part of women's wrestling.
Yes, she even like when I was doing my studying, trying to look at like what worked in the past, and she was such a big figure during that time. Of course, it was Sable, and then there was her. She was like such a big part. She was doing stuff with men, and it's like it was. I I think it was unheard of during that time. So I was like, wow, like this woman just get to like throw people around, just get to, low blow people, get to interact with guys like Surgeon Slaughter, all these men. And everyone was just like looking at China like, wow, like she is an Amazon. She was an Amazon.
Absolutely. And I look at it from a stance too as well. Back in the day, we had Medusa Michelli, aka Alundra Blaze. She was another one, could wrestle, very tough, got into it with men, and she was one of the ones that really stuck out for a lot of people.
Yes, definitely. I started watching hers too, and I really like how she, wrestle. And she's around like I think she's taller than me, but she's around the same like body figure. So I'm like, I need to learn what she do too, and how she do her kicks and stuff like that. It's like it's a struggle trying to find things for myself that do not involve suplexing people.
Well, I mean, you get to work on your ground game, your kicks, your strikes, and submissions. So again, it's more technical aspect, and then there's more aerial aspect. So again, adding moves to your repertoire. And I also look at it from a stance too. Getting into LFC, there's so many different sex appeal aspect to it, but it's like, we got jujitsu, we got MMA, we got wrestling, so many different backgrounds with LFC. So I'm curious, man. It was great to see your name in the LFC Madness lineup, being now an LFC prospect. How did you gravitate towards the world of LFC lingerie fighting championships? What really piqued your interest?
uh Social media, like when I was contacted, what is it? I was so excited. I was like, I want to just get into something different, something that could empower women, just like women could be beautiful, but they could do flex things. Like there's Ronda Rousey. She's like one of the best with sports. She went to WWE. She was MMA and all these things. So I want to be like that, and hopefully I get to do more.
You were in the LFC Madness against Dominique Damiano. Unfortunately, you were eliminated in the first round, but I'm sure there's going to be more tournaments, and I look forward to seeing you do some more. And with LFC, now I'm going to say this right now. What's great about LFC, we mentioned the sex appeal, but we also do have that aspect of combat. It's like the LFL when we had the Lingerie Football League. It's beautiful women, but kicking the crap out of each other in football. And Summer Rae, the woman who would go into Summer Rae in WWE, is an alumna of the LFL. Like, isn't it amazing just to see those two worlds coincide, but also at the same time, you get to be sexy and beautiful?
Definitely, even like the woman that I was competing with in that tournament, she is beyond gorgeous. I was looking at her like, no, I'm not going to win this round. Like, no, she is gorgeous. She's huge. She is like, I was so amazed by her appearance, and I was like, wow, I look like a plain Jane compared to her.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, what's great about LFC is we have women of different shapes and sizes. And I got to say, Dominique is a power lifter and she's done a lot of amazing things. There's a lot. Well, that's the key also as well. Like, I'm actually going to bring this up. The fitness side of things and the training aspect, the everything that goes into it. A lot of people don't realize like that is the main integral part of it as well, besides the beauty, because I mean,
Yes.
it's women in lingerie, but at the same time, these women are badasses and can kick butts. I mean, the training is very imperative.
Yes, and she's really athletic. She looks athletic just by looking at her muscles. And I was like, holy crap. Like, if this was like a physical match, I would just be like completely done. She would just like punch me in my face. I would be like, okay, I'm not going to fight back. Like, I can't.
You're just like, uncle, no mas, no mas.
Like, no, like, I would just like, let me lay down and you could just do whatever. Like, I'm done. No.
I think what's
She, she's so powerful.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm thinking the power game as well. And also with many talents like yourself, there's so many independent wrestling females like yourself and so many people that we've actually seen on the main stages in WWE, MLW, Impact compete in LFC, like Katie Forbes, Selena De La Renta, Vita Von Star, who was in Ring of Honor. So there's a lot of people that we get to see from the wrestling outside world. And for those that don't know it, boom, here we are. So, I mean, everything kind of coincides and works together.
Yes, definitely. It's like it's something. It's so different, and it makes me like want to be like this venture off to all of this, like being powerful, just being like the Bella twins. Not that this like coincides with this, but even the Bellas, this being like they're powerful women. They did wrestling. They're in businesses. They was doing reality shows. Like I think that's like the goal for women, maybe.
No, I mean, actually, first and foremost, it does actually kind of coincide with this. I'm glad, again, very eloquent what you're saying here because here's what's cool about it. Bella Twins, yes, reality stars, professional wrestlers, Hall of Famers. But at the same time, we got a lot of badass women there as well. They came in around the diva era. They're still focusing on bikini, but also with the looks. But also at the same time, what's cool about it is too, besides LFC with the women, beautiful women. Here's the style, here's the entrance, here's the grace. It's one of those things where it's like we got some smart ass bad women too. So I mean, it's the intelligence wise, and people get to venture into different avenues. So LFC is one of the proving grounds.
It's 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 an art, like trying to figure out business, like trying to figure out how to break out and be a star during this. It's like I'm still trying to figure out like how do you become unique to break out? Like the Bellas, like for example, they break out. They were different. They're twins, so that makes them unique. They're funny. They're even if you watch a reality show, I was a huge fan, and they're just they like how they act is like no, this they are the main stars. Like no offense to anyone else on that show, but they were the main stars. But they made me feel like okay, I want to watch the Bellas. I want to watch the Bellas. And when they did the wine, and I was like, oh my god, I don't drink wine, but if I did, I would definitely buy that. The podcast I listen to it daily, weekly, just and it's so like I don't know, it's just so powerful. So yeah, the Bellas is so such a inspiration.
Of course, and I mean, people do crap on them for like the wrestling ability,
So much.
right? I mean, here's the thing. So as a young man, I grew up, my era was, Trish Stratus, Lita, Molly Holly, Jazz, Victoria, and so many beautiful women like that. So I look at it from a stance too. That's a ruthless aggression era. But once we got to '08 and we're starting to go towards more, as people call it, the TVPG era, you can't deny that even though you want to say stuff about the wrestling world, the Bella Twins were a focal point, and that's the reason why a lot of women nowadays really want to get into professional wrestling. So you really can't deny that fact.
Definitely, even Bianca Belair,
Yep.
she said that she was a fan of Total Divas, and now look at her, she's one of the biggest stars. It's like all because they they didn't have the benefit of being on in the indies. See, they went in the PC WWE NXT PC, but they did what they had to do and they achieved that and they got better throughout the years. And even Nikki was such a powerhouse that I was like, her forearms is so beautiful, and I was like, oh my god, I want my forearms to look like those.
Oh, beautiful. Absolutely. And beautifully said. I look at it from a stance too, as well. Like you look at Bianca Belair when she was in the first Mae Young Classic and they're talking about on commentary, JR and Lita, like she's only been doing this for like a year and a half. And I'm like, she's going against Kyrie Sane and all these people. And she's a natural. I mean, she's a natural athlete and
Yes.
everything, but it's just like this girl's in here for like a year and a half and she's killing it.
Yeah, she's such an athlete, and I look at her and I'm like, oh my god, like if I had to work so hard just to get that ability, but she just like, oh, I feel like I'm the best with this and this and this. I'm like, holy crap, like one of the top people, like even like her, Sasha, Becky, basically all the four horsemen, like they're like the standard these days to like, okay, how do I be better than that? And it's I'm still figuring that out.
Hey, you know what it is, and I'm going to say this to you, and it's one of the phrases and quotes I like to use. Trust the process, because, like I said, pay the good things that come to those who wait. But at the end of the day, we got to trust the process, and just remember to trust the process.
Definitely, like just keep hustling, just keep working, like just don't stop, and then you're going to achieve your goal one way or another. You know.
Oh yeah, and I mean to quote the great Ice Cube, he had a song back in '99, 2000 called "Until We Rich." Get your mind right, get your grind right. We got to keep going. So I mean, that's very imperative in today's society.
Yeah, I don't know who Ice Cube is, but
Ice Cube,
uh,
WA, yeah, Ice Cube with Dr. Dre back in the day. No,
no.
okay, all right. I'll give
I'm
this.
like, no.
No, okay,
Um,
that's all right. I'll definitely send you the song after this. But yeah, definitely check out. You'll enjoy it. It's good music.
I was like, that sounds like something I should know, but also I'm like really bad with um pop culture from something that's not near to my era. I'm more like MTV era, kind of like when I'm forgetting the name, like like oh my god, you know that blind date show, like the parents
Oh, like the
like
okay. So you mean like the parental control and all that?
yes, that was like my kind of thing when I started watching and MTV and VH1, and I started growing up during those era that I was like, oh
You see, I'm not even going to say anything because I got to say I've seen that show as well, and it is very funny. There's a lot of MTV more is really reality based now with your catfishes and shows like that. So I look at it from a stance too as well, and I know a lot of people go because of the generation gap, but there's stuff for you to learn now, and see now you can learn more about Ice Cube with that song. So we're teaching the
yeah,
old and the young, man. That's what we're doing.
definitely. Even like going back to like the 60s, and I mean really getting to like Janis Joplin and this Patti Smith and all these women, like to tie it back to women. And it's like just like going back to the basics, going back to the how like how women from the past like benefit the future.
Okay. And I mean, first of all, Janis Joplin, oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes Benz? I like your taste. I like your style. Very nice. And I mean,
Yes, I was just listening to that this morning, but
nice. Okay. But that's the thing that coincides, and I'm actually glad this is another great topic. Popular culture really influences a lot with wrestling. Music and wrestling are very similar in their art forms and the overall travel. So, I mean, if you have a woman like, again, going back as a kid that grew up in the 90s, Britney Spears, when she first started with Baby One More Time and she's in the schoolgirl outfit, Britney Spears became one of the biggest megastars from the Mickey Mouse Club to her music and to where she is now when she's doing her thing, Free Britney. It's one of those things that's just absolutely amazing to see the evolution from music and wrestling.
yes, it's even I'm trying to think like wasn't like Cardi B supposed to be in SummerSlam or something like that
Yes.
during that time, and I was like, oh my god, that would be so like that was like when everything just going like start coming together. Even like Amigos, like something like that. Do not know how to pronounce the name, but they're going to be the next pay per view day one, I believe. And I
Yes.
was like, oh my god, rap and wrestling is coming together now.
I mean, if you can have Bad Bunny, who, by the way, was absolutely fabulous at WrestleMania, took it seriously,
Definitely.
absolutely killed it. And that's the thing. When I first saw Bad Bunny, I'm like, okay, it's another celebrity because we've seen celebrities in wrestling for a number of years. And I'm like, all right, let's see how this goes. And he absolutely blew everybody away.
Yeah, it was like Snooki when she was in WrestleMania in that 6 man tag, I believe, and she killed it. And I don't remember much of it, but I do remember the backflip thing she did, and I was like, oh my god, like she really did that thing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was it was John Morrison, Trish Stratus, and all that good stuff against Dolph Ziggler and Lay Cool. I mean, and Snooki was on their team, excuse me. But yeah, no, that was the thing too, because the big thing was like, okay, it's Snooki. Jersey Shore is very popular at this time. This is 2011. So I mean, and I think she had a background in like athletics and like cheerleading and shows she knows about.
Yeah.
And it fit. It fit the right spot. It was what she needed to do, and it worked perfectly.
Yes, it was so like even like being a big name with her, John Cena, and The Rock, and I think I'm remembering like the press conference, I believe, and she was in the middle of them, and that sounds like that's big star stuff. And that was like when you made it. You're the main attraction, not main attraction, but you're one of the main attractions during that.
Oh, absolutely. And isn't it crazy to think that the Jersey Shore is like 13 years old now, man? Or going to be 13-year old? Is that nuts?
I know. It was like I was watching like the season in high school, I believe, freshman year, and I was like, oh my God, like what happened?
First and foremost, stop making me feel old, yo.
I know, I'm so sorry.
You're fine. But also what's cool about it too is with LFC. Now we talked about the entrances and the overall how, like I said, don't even say the plain Jane thing because women go in all different sizes, and you're a cutie beauty, and I'll say that to you. I got nothing but love.
Thank you.
Welcome. But no, you fit in like with everybody, and I look at it from a stance too. We have a fighter, Serena Honey Punch Kyle. The Honey Punch comes from the great nickname of like she's sweet as honey, but she can fight. She has a hell of a punch. Now, there's women like yourself, very small in stature, which is fine because there's so many great talents of that. But I mean, you could scrap. You've seen your work. You can scrap, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I just try and like I can't lift someone up, but I could jump and try to hurricane one on you. Like it's fun. It's just fun to be able to do things like that, like bouncing off the rope, getting the hurricane, like doing it with different people, and it's like the best part. Like everyone, like oh my God, and I'm like, yeah, I did that thing.
I think you'll fit very well in LFC, and I truly do. I hope to see a lot of people like yourself and Taylor, Holly Combs, and Felicia Moore, and so many.
I hope so. Yes, those are my goals. Yes, I hope so. I hope I'll be able to do those kind of things, just flip over and do flippy stuff. That'd be fun.
Now, what's great, like I mentioned, the entrance wise, and I mean, there's so many great entrances that really encompass LFC from the sexual side of things, the sensual side of things. But it's very, like we mentioned, beautiful and power just to see these amazing, beautiful women internally and externally. So I got to ask you, there's so many different outfits and the style and the finesse that go into it. The lingerie side of things, man, get that sex appeal going. What would be your type of lingerie? What would you be wearing, man? What could we expect if that debut does happen in the future?
Man, I don't even know. I'm just like usually I'm just like, oh my God, I don't want to show anything. But since like even like during now I'm wearing more bodysuit things that show me off a little bit more, and people enjoy that weirdly enough. And I was like, oh okay, I should wear something like that, like like lace kind of things, a lace bodysuit, hopefully.
That works.
Just be able to do something like that. And I was like, hopefully that will look good because I'm just like I'm more like I don't know how to describe it. I'm more not like shapely, but it's small, but I don't know how to describe my body at all.
Yeah, I get it. It's fine. I mean, there's a lot of leather and lace. There's a lot of curves, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into these outfits. I mean, it makes for something like I mentioned, the cutie beauty style. There's everything. It can range from cutie beauty to boom, boom, boom. You know what I'm saying? What we're doing is we're exuding and accentuating internal and external beauty, but there's also a little something called the voluptuosity factor, man. So sometimes if you got it, flaunt it, man. So just keep styling and profiling.
I know it's so hard trying to put together a new gear, new outfit, and I'm like, well, it's going to be 2021. I should start getting something new, and it's like, well, what should I wear? And that's like the kind of thing I need to start thinking about, like especially if I'm going to do shows again, then I need to, amp up that character. So
Of course, Miss Box Office Attraction, Miss quantity that you are, you got to build yourself up. And I got to say this before we do close this out, Dabria, it's been a pleasure and a privilege to have you on the show, and we're definitely going to get you back on the LFC podcast here. And I really did enjoy your time. Really get to pick your brain on LFC and professional wrestling. I truly appreciate it.
thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. And now I'm going to say this because as someone who's done CCW Dojo Wars and been around for the independent wrestling scene and professional wrestling as a whole, I love to ask this from your experience. What advice would you give to a lot of up and comers, women's wrestling, and professional wrestling, or just professional wrestling in general that want to get into the industry?
Just like believing in yourself, definitely. Like even for me, it's hard to do it sometimes. Even during like my last match I did, and it's like just don't get into your head, because when you get in your head, things like bad happen. So just don't think about it. Just do it. That's my motto. Just do it.
Hey man, if it works for Nike and it works for all the companies, it does. It's very imperative. But no, that's very simplistic and that's very, very true and very eloquently and beautifully said, Dabria. And before we do close this out, please promote the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. There's so many handles,
Oh,
there's so many social media. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
oh man, social media. That's the thing. Instagram, Dabria Xavia, I believe. That's just the main place I am on. I really don't do Twitter. Twitter just makes me cringe. But if you do want to follow me, it's on Dabria underscore X and Facebook, Dabria Xavia. Actually, no. Good. I changed my name on there, so you would never see my Facebook.
Okay, fair enough. So we'll get on the Twitter, Instagram side of things. And first of all, I have to chuckle with this because here's what I love. And obviously, with these shows, we get to promote social media and to follow the guests and everything. But god dang, man, social media has a lot of pros and cons. And I don't blame you about Twitter because Twitter is an absolute mess and the Twitter is an absolute headache. So I don't blame you for just sticking to the gram.
I know. It's like, I know a lot of people, even like trainers, you're like, you need to be on Twitter. And I'm like, Twitter is so toxic for me that I don't even want to be around it. And even with Instagram, I only post on my stories just because I can't be on it all the time, or I just going to feel upset, like, you know.
Well, I think in a day and age
Mm.
where mental health is at the forefront, as it should be, and I got to say, for a lot of people, when it comes to social media, everybody just has to just get away. Or like, you have to take that break.
Definitely, just even like taking a break, shut off your app, like, or your when you have the option on your phone to just shut off your app for a day or two. And that's usually what I do. I shut it off. I don't do anything except for work or sleep, and that's how you get through the day.
Absolutely. But I will say that you are a great follow on the Instagram side of things. We get to see your matches and we get to see your lovely images. So definitely check out Dabri on the Instagram front. The links will be in the description. And Dabri Xavia, do you have any final words for your fans into the LFC universe? Probably seeing you at a future LFC event in this prospect. What do you have to ask?
Ah, definitely is that I am the box office attraction. I am box office money, and I am the main character of your life, and don't forget that.
Beautifully said. Dollar dollar bill, y'all, to quote Wyclef and Akon, man. Get that money, baby. So,
Oh, I forgot one more thing.
yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm the greatest thing in New York City. Don't forget that either.
NYC represented. First and foremost, I'm a Long Island guy, so I'm a New Yorker. So I got to say, representing that East Coast, man. New York representing. I love it. So for Dabria Xavia, my name is Michael Larkin. Thank you guys so much for listening to another edition of the LFC podcast. And as I always say, to end this, beauty, strength, and dominance, the three key elements that make the work of art that they are. And Dabria Xavia, box office attraction. I include you in those sentiments. Thank you so much.
Thank you.